Hello and welcome back to the podcast We Are Selling. My name's Lee Woodward, the author of the Complete Salesperson course. Over the last few weeks, we've had some great guests appearing on all sorts of topics, but the topic of choice that has come to my attention from your feedback is more work on negotiation. Negotiation is one of the greatest skills and underestimated parts of the learning process of real estate. Today, we're going to dive deep into the topic with a real estate ninja negotiator, a man who's worked in the industry for over 30 years and developed some of our very best real estate sales professionals. And that would be Mr. Chris Hanley. Chris, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Lee. How you doing?
Very excited to speak to someone who understands the topic of negotiation at an in-depth level. Well, Chris, let's get straight into our topic. And my first topic of interest to you is patience is not passive in a negotiation. Expand upon that.
I think we understand deep down that you have to be patient sometime with negotiation, but patience doesn't mean, Lee, in negotiations you just deliver something to someone, like an offer, and then sit around and wait for things to happen. There's a measure of activity involved, even though patience sounds and feels like it's a waiting activity where you don't do much. So what I'm saying here is you leave people to think about an offer that's delivered or the conditions that have been delivered, but you only leave them for a while and you don't stop communicating with them. Some agents leave people in silence, a little bit like, we'll put you over there in the corner for a while and we'll ring you back in a while, but that's not the way to do it. So patience is active. It's not something where you just sit and wait.
And I think this is also true in the framing of a negotiation. If you don't, as you just clearly mentioned, keep communicating, they start to frame it themselves, and their frame is far worse than our frame.
Great point, Lee. Really, really good point. And what happens in people's minds it's the same as the process of educating an owner after you list a property. Silence, if they're left to their own devices, they've got a thing called an imagination. And all our imaginations can scare us. They can make us tense, they can make us upset, and most importantly, they can lower trust. If you really want to give another word or provide another word for negotiation, it's education. And it's constant education. It's talking to people all of the time. At the listing presentation, nearly every major mistake, or if you like, landmine for later in the relationship is laid. And one of the mistakes that's always made at listing presentations is that people don't explain the different parts of a negotiation. Negotiations have three parts, Lee. There's the substance, which is in our industry is often the price and the terms and conditions. Then there's the process, which is very important and virtually never explained to an owner or a seller. And then there's a thing called the relationship. And the relationship is during and then after the negotiation is finished. So in order to make sure that you build trust, in order to continue to speak with people and educate them, you've got to explain the three parts, the substance, the process and the relationship.
Chris, as you talk on this audio now, you're at a very seasoned part of your career. Do you ever reflect back on the thousands of negotiations you've pulled together and actually see how they did come together without even knowing the knowledge you have now of understanding what actually happened?
Yeah, that's another good question, Lee. I did and have recently and wondered sometimes how I got things across the line. There is no substitute at the end of the day for energy and passion and enthusiasm. And what I lacked in my early years absolutely lacked in terms of understanding of things like the process, all the skills that went along that you learn over time. What I lacked in those years, I made up for with sheer energy. So young people who enter the industry can be great negotiators on the basis that they just don't give up. Like if someone said to me, what is the most significant thing in negotiation? I will still say to you, it is a never say die attitude. It is a belief, and I still have this belief, Lee, after more than 35 years, that there's not a deal that I can't put together. And over more than 35 years, there's been very, very few deals that I couldn't put together. But I suspect that things like the relationship with the owners after it was over, people were left a little bruised because I didn't exactly know what I was doing. But yeah, reflection's a wonderful thing. And as I mentioned a moment ago, being patient is active rather than passive. Well, it's the same with every deal you're involved in, that you've got to have that level of energy and passion that goes along with the skills. And let me say this, Lee, negotiation's got the three components, if you like, from an agent's point of view. It's an art, it is a skill that can be learned, but it's a level of energy. And that energy that I call emotional labour, that is, to me, the most important part. A lot of agents go and get the training, for example, but they don't and aren't prepared to put in enough emotional labour. And if you want me to define emotional labour, it's pushing and using up all your own energy as much as you can to, A, put the deal together, but more importantly, to hold it together.
Energy in a negotiation needs to be clean energy. And I look at my own career, and even coming through as a young agent, there was all these deals that would come together that the other people couldn't pull together, but I generally just wanted the whole thing to work versus I get paid. And I think that short-term view energy of an agent picking up the calculator when they got the first offer is where bad energy lives. No matter how good you are in negotiation, people can see your clear intent. They can smell it. This just doesn't feel right. It's not passing the taste test. And that's when, in the past, I won't bring it into the future, many people shortcut information. They didn't ask the owner something on that point. Then it catches up with them right at the big clanging part of the deal where they say, hang on, you said that the dishwasher was staying. And although all the money and so forth was approved, that one little thing you didn't do in the investigation or the detail now come back to bite you because you tried to fast-track the process versus detail. I think good negotiators do investigate the details because you don't know if that detail is going to pop up now or in 4 hours when the deal's everything.
They call that type of deal, which is done every day in every office in the country, a thin ice deal, Lee. And a thin ice deal is in essence exactly as you described it. If there's 5 or 6 significant points, a couple of them are glossed over or a couple of them are made light of. At the end of the day, without trust, trust is the oil. Trust is the oil in the entire process of listing and selling someone's house. And when you get to the final bit, negotiating, if there's no trust, they're forever wary about anything you say to them. It's very possible for all agents to be transparently direct and frank and honest in their negotiation. There's always the challenge, what do I tell to that person and what do I tell to the other? But going back to what you've pointed out, unless they, the owner and the buyer, sense that you're transparent, sense that they can trust you, then what do? They hide information. And in the end, you put a deal together, it's a thin ice deal, it gets to week 2 maybe, or it gets into the process exactly as you said, wait a minute, this isn't what we negotiated. This isn't what we understood the deal was, and it falls over and someone's just wasted a couple of weeks of hard work.
I love the line, don't lie and you won't have to remember anything. When people are putting things together, they shortcut that process, and I love your words, don't do a thin ice deal. Explain the big bristle to me.
The big bristle is a predictable surprise. The big bristle usually means that in the process of negotiation, it's often the seller, but sometimes the buyer, they get bristled. The hairs on their neck go up and they get angry. And I know one of my staff was with me the other day and but the bristle popped up and the owner got very angry during the process because, for example, the purchaser hadn't offered the exact terms and conditions and they got angry. Now, when you get to the big bristle, another word for it is conflict and anger. What happens with a lot of salespeople? They run away. They don't like it. They're avoiders. And I get why they don't like it, but what they miss is it actually is the best part of the process because once someone, it's often an owner, once someone gets to that place, they're ready to sell. But instead of us understanding that that's a sign that they're ready to sell, we get bruised, we run away, we hide in a corner, we even sulk. Now, the bottom line in this instance is that's where you earn your money. That's where great agents understand immediately that they're getting close, and the anger's not really about you. In our industry, people are angry with us a lot. But it's not about you, it's about the process or about their view of it or about the people on the other end of it. It might be about the purchaser. So the big bristle is a positive sign, not a negative. Sometimes you've got to leave people alone for a little while then, and then you come back to them. You don't insult people in that place, but you don't have to put up with them being personal either. But when you get to the big bristle, you're nearly at the top. You know, you're not, a lot of agents think they're at the bottom of a hill. They're not. They're nearly at the top. They're close to getting a deal together. Why? Because often in that place, the owner's ready to accept or come to the reality they're not going to get exactly what they wanted, and they're going to get a figure that's maybe a little below that. And the process of being angry usually is them being angry with themselves as much as it is with the agent.
And I think you need to know when to, A, stand your ground, and 2, let it breathe.
Yeah, let it breathe, just like wine is a good metaphor. And we all have when we negotiate, leave people alone sometime for a little while. You know, the beauty now of text messaging and email and all of those things is that you can have gentle contact and, you know, you can face-to-face talk on the phone, you can email and you can text. Now, I passionately believe that emailing and texting people during negotiation is most of the time the worst thing you can do because it's a coward's way. The best thing you can do is talk to someone face-to-face. End of story. Why? Because in negotiation, it's much harder to say no to you face-to-face. It's real easy on a phone or a text or an email. But having said that, I have, and my team have used texting, for example, during the process of negotiation, sometimes to keep in contact, sometimes to do things like ask questions, how you doing? Would you like me to call? Have you given any further thought to things? So sometimes you can use different methods of communication to keep in contact, to build trust, to build empathy, right? But not to get into conflict with people.
Chris, absolutely brilliant piece of information. That good. We're going to get you back next week and we're going to further discuss the power of negotiation. Chris Hanley, thank you for joining us.
See you, Lee.